Kim Hannah pulled her wrench from the quantum drive housing and wiped the synthetic lubricant from her calloused hands. The massive engine hummed beneath her touch, its crystalline core pulsing with energy that could bend space itself. 5 years. She had worked these metal corridors aboard the research station New Dawn. 5 years of crawling through maintenance shafts, while the galaxy's brightest minds walked past her like she was part of the machinery. The station orbited Earth's moon, a gleaming testament to human engineering that housed 200 of the planet's most brilliant scientists. Its rotating sections generated artificial gravity, while solar collectors fed power to laboratories where humanity pushed the boundaries of knowledge. Hannah knew every bolt, every circuit, every quantum resonance chamber better than the back of her hand. She secured her tools and headed toward the main conference room, drawn by the urgent voices echoing through the corridors. Through the reinforced viewport, Earth hung like a blue marble against the star-filled void, peaceful and unaware of the crisis brewing aboard the station. Dr. Park Ji-won stood at the head of the polished conference table, his expensive suit pristine despite the late hour. Round him sat the cream of Earth's intellectual elite: theoretical physicists, quantum mathematicians, xenobiologists, all staring at the holographic display floating above the table. The alien symbols seemed to writhe and shift, defying human comprehension. The Kalari transmission arrived 3 days ago, Dr. Park announced, his voice carrying the weight of humanity's fate. Their ultimatum is clear: solve their mathematical proof within 30 days, or Earth will be classified as an intellectually inferior species and permanently excluded from galactic civilization. Hannah pressed closer to the observation window, watching as the assembled scientists leaned forward. She had heard whispers about first contact, about alien races that had been watching humanity from the shadows. Now it seemed those watchers had finally revealed themselves, and they were not impressed. Dr. Choi Yuna, her Princeton credentials displayed prominently on the wall behind her, gestured at the swirling equations. The mathematics appear to operate on principles we've never encountered. 11-dimensional calculus combined with what looks like consciousness-based variables. Preposterous, scoffed Dr. Kang Soon, adjusting his Stanford class ring. Consciousness cannot be quantified mathematically. The aliens are clearly testing our ability to recognize impossible paradoxes. Hannah studied the floating symbols through the glass, her engineer's mind automatically looking for patterns and relationships. Something about the equation's structure reminded her of the quantum field harmonics she worked with daily. The way certain variables seemed to pulse in rhythm matched the resonance frequencies of the station's binaural interfaces. She made a decision that would change everything. Taking a deep breath, she activated the door panel and stepped into the conference room. The conversations died as 24 pairs of eyes turned toward her, some curious, most annoyed at the interruption. "Excuse me," Hannah said quietly, her maintenance uniform a stark contrast to the expensive suits around her. "I couldn't help but notice the equation structure. Have you considered examining its practical applications rather than purely theoretical ones, Doctor?" Lee Min-ho's laughter filled the room like broken glass. He was young for a department head, his Harvard PhD earned at 24, his contempt for a practical worker's legendary among the station support staff. "Perhaps you should stick to fixing pipes, Miss Kim. This requires minds trained at Harvard, and not community college graduates who learned math from repair manuals." The other scientists chuckled, their amusement cutting deeper than any insult. Dr. Choi Yuna didn't even look up from her tablet. Dr. Kang Soon shook his head as if dealing with a child who had wandered into adult conversation. Even the junior researchers, desperate to impress their superiors, smiled condescendingly. "The fate of our species hangs in the balance," Dr. Park added with false patience. "This is not the time for amateur hour. Security should have prevented maintenance staff from entering sensitive areas. Hannah felt heat rise in her cheeks but kept her voice steady. I understand quantum field dynamics better than most. The stations. Drives wouldn't function without following the specifications we designed. Dr. Lee interrupted. You're a technician. Miss Kim. You follow instructions. You don't create breakthrough mathematics that will determine humanity's place in the cosmos. The dismissal stung worse than the laughter. Hannah had spent countless hours studying advanced mathematics, pushing herself through night classes while working double shifts. Her community college professors had recognized her potential, but in this room filled with Ivy League credentials, her knowledge meant nothing. She bowed politely, the ingrained courtesy of her upbringing overriding her anger. Of course, Dr. Lee. I apologize for the interruption. As she turned to leave, her eyes caught the alien equation one final time. The symbols seemed to pulse with hidden meaning, like a puzzle waiting for the right perspective to unlock its secrets. While the brilliant minds behind her returned to their theoretical debates, Hannah's practical understanding whispered that the answer lay not in abstract mathematics, but in the very real quantum phenomena she worked with every day. The door sealed behind her with a soft hiss, leaving the PhDs to their impossible task while a simple maintenance engineer carried the seed of humanity's salvation in her determined mind. The Klar equation sprawled across every available screen in the research station like a digital nightmare, its alien symbols twisted and curved in impossible ways, defying every mathematical principle humanity had discovered. 11 dimensions folded into themselves, while variables pulsed with meanings that seemed to shift. Whenever someone tried to grasp them, Dr. Park Ji-won hadn't slept in 3 days. Coffee stains marked his once pristine shirt as he stared at the holographic display, his bloodshot eyes tracking symbols that hurt to look at directly round him. The greatest minds Earth had ever produced sat in various states of exhaustion and defeat. We're missing something fundamental, Dr. Choi Yuna muttered, her Princeton confidence cracking under the weight of the impossible. She had filled 17 whiteboards with calculations, each one ending in mathematical contradictions that shouldn't exist. The base assumptions don't align with any known mathematical framework. Dr. Kang Suan threw his stylus across the room in frustration. His Stanford training had prepared him for complex problems, but this equation seemed to mock human intelligence itself. The aliens designed this to be unsolvable. They want us to fail. 2 floors below, in the station's maintenance section, Hannah printed another copy of the equation on recycled paper. The industrial printer churned out page after page of alien symbols while she sipped instant coffee from a chip mug. Her small workspace was cramped between the quantum drive housing and the primary power distribution panel, but it was quiet and far from the chaos consuming the upper levels. She spread the papers across her workbench, using magnetic clamps to hold them in place against the station's artificial gravity, while the scientists above debated theoretical frameworks and dimensional mathematics. Hannah approached the problem like she would any malfunctioning system, by looking for patterns and relationships. Had revealed how the parts worked together. The equation's structure reminded her of something familiar. She pulled up the schematics for the station's binaural interface system on her tablet, comparing the alien symbols to the quantum field harmonics that allowed human consciousness to interface with the ship's computers. The similarities were striking once you looked past the exotic mathematical notation. Days blended into nights as the deadline approached. The research team worked in shifts, their debates growing more heated as progress remained elusive. Dr. Lee Min-ho had taken to shouting at his assistants, his Harvard arrogance cracking under pressure. Several junior researchers had requested transfers off the station. Unable to handle the mounting stress, the mathematical structure violates the fundamental laws of dimensional topology, Dr. Park announced during one midnight meeting, his voice hoarse from exhaustion. We're trying to solve an equation that shouldn't exist in our universe. Through the conference room's reinforced windows, Earth turns slowly in the distance. Its blue oceans and white clouds oblivious to the crisis unfolding in orbit. The Kelari had been clear in their message. Failure meant humanity would be marked as intellectually inferior and barred from joining the galactic community. Earth would remain isolated, cut off from the vast network of civilizations that spanned the galaxy. Hannah worked through her maintenance rounds, checking systems and calibrating equipment while her mind wrestled with the alien mathematics. She had downloaded every available text on quantum field theory and dimensional physics to her personal tablet, studying during meal breaks and rest periods. The other maintenance workers thought she was crazy, but they left her alone with her obsession. The breakthrough came during a routine inspection of the quantum drive's resonance chamber. Hannah was adjusting the harmonic frequencies when she noticed how the energy patterns matched sections of the Kelari equation. The alien symbols weren't just describing mathematical relationships. They were describing the physical interaction between consciousness and quantum fields. She ran back to her workstation, pulling up the binaural interface specifications alongside the alien equation. The patterns aligned perfectly once you understood what you were looking at. The Kelari weren't testing humanity's ability to solve abstract mathematics. They were testing whether humans could recognize the relationship between thought and reality. At the quantum level, above her, the research team continued their futile debates. Dr. Park paced the conference room floor, gesturing wildly at equations that made no sense. 17 days, he declared to the assembled scientists. 17 days until humanity is judged and found wanting. Dr. Choyuna had stopped trying to solve the equation and was now focusing on translation, hoping to find errors in the alien communication. Perhaps we're misunderstanding their notation system, she suggested. Though her voice lacked conviction, Dr. Kang Suan had retreated into pure theoretical work, building mathematical models that bore no resemblance to physical reality. His Stanford training had taught him to think in abstractions, but the Kelari equation demanded something different from her maintenance station. Hannah could hear their frustrated voices echoing through the ventilation system. She felt sorry for them, trapped by their own brilliance and unable to see the forest for the trees. The equation wasn't impossible. It was just describing something they had never considered. She worked through the night, translating alien symbols into familiar engineering principles. Each breakthrough revealed new layers of meaning, showing how consciousness could manipulate quantum fields to affect physical reality. It was elegant in its simplicity once you understood the underlying principles. The greatest mathematical challenge in human history wasn't about pure theory. It was about recognizing the practical relationship between mind and matter that engineers like Hannah witnessed every day. The power coupling sparked dangerously as Hannah crawled through the narrow maintenance shaft, her headlamp cutting through the darkness. Section C7 had been acting up for weeks, causing fluctuations in the binaural interface systems that the scientists above used to communicate with the station's quantum computers. The cramped space reeked of ozone and heated metal, but Hannah had spent so many hours in these tunnels that they felt like home. She disconnected the damaged coupling and pulled out her diagnostic scanner. The quantum field readings were all wrong. The consciousness interface frequencies were oscillating in patterns that shouldn't be possible. But as she stared at the scanner's display, something clicked in her mind like a puzzle piece finding its place. The oscillation patterns matched perfectly with sections of the Kelari equation she had memorized. The alien symbols weren't describing abstract mathematical concepts. They were describing exactly what she was seeing right now: the relationship between human consciousness and quantum field fluctuations. The same invisible dance that made their station's binaural systems work, lightning, seemed to strike inside her brain. Every symbol, Every impossible variable in the alien equation suddenly made perfect sense. The Kelari weren't testing humanity's ability to solve theoretical mathematics. They were testing whether humans understood the fundamental connection between mind and matter at the quantum level. Hannah's hands shook as she finished the repair work, her mind racing with possibilities. She had to get back to her quarters. Had to work through this revelation before the breakthrough slipped away. The maintenance chef felt endless as she crawled back toward the main corridor, her heart pounding with excitement and fear. Her quarters were tiny. Just a bed, a desk, and a small viewport showing the star-filled void beyond. But it was private, and right now privacy was exactly what she needed. She pulled out every piece of paper she had printed, spreading the alien equation across her floor like pieces of a massive jigsaw puzzle. The coffee maker gurgled to life as Hannah dove into the work that would change everything. She started with the binaural interface manuals, cross-referencing the quantum field specifications with the alien symbols. Each match sent chills down her spine. The Kelari equation was describing the same consciousness quantum interaction she worked with every single day. Hours passed unnoticed as Hannah translated alien concepts into familiar engineering terms, where Dr. Park and his team saw impossible dimensional mathematics. She recognized the field equations that governed how human thoughts interfaced with quantum computers. Where they found paradoxes, she found elegant descriptions of consciousness as a quantum field manipulator. The station's binaural systems worked by reading brainwave patterns and translating them into quantum field adjustments. Every time scientists used thought control to access the computers, they were proving that consciousness could directly influence quantum reality. The aliens had simply described this process using their own mathematical notation. Hannah's stylus flew across page after page as she worked through the solution. The quantum consciousness field, that was the key variable the human scientists had missed. They thought it was abstract mathematics, but it was actually describing something measurable, something real that happened millions of times per day aboard their own station. Through her small viewport, she watched Earth's Terminator line creep across the planet's surface as night gave way to dawn. The blue marble looked so peaceful from orbit, unaware that its fate hung in the balance of equations being solved in a cramped maintenance worker's quarters. The breakthrough accelerated as each piece fell into place. The alien symbols described how conscious observation collapsed quantum probability waves into fixed reality. They showed how focused thought could manipulate quantum fields to achieve impossible results. They revealed that consciousness wasn't separate from the physical universe. It was an integral part of how reality itself functioned. Hannah paused only to refill her coffee mug and grab a protein bar from her emergency supplies. The work consumed her completely, each solved section revealing new layers of elegant complexity. The Kelari had encoded not just a mathematical proof, but a complete guide to consciousness-based technology that made humanity's current quantum systems look primitive by comparison. By the time dawn light began filtering through her viewport, Hannah had mapped the entire solution. Every impossible variable now had a clear physical meaning. Every paradoxical equation described real phenomena she had witnessed during her years maintaining the station's binaural interfaces. The solution was beautiful in its simplicity once you understood the underlying principles. Consciousness wasn't just an observer of quantum reality. It was an active participant, capable of directly influencing matter and energy through focused intention. The Kelari equation described the mathematical framework for harnessing this power. Hannah sat back in her chair, exhausted but exhilarated. Spread across her floor was humanity's ticket to the stars, solved not through brilliant theoretical work but through practical understanding of systems that already existed. The greatest mathematical challenge in human history had been cracked by recognizing that the impossible was actually happening every day, right under everyone's noses, above her. The research team was probably just waking up to another day of futile debates and frustrated. Calculations. They had no idea that the answer they desperately sought lay in the hands of the maintenance worker they had dismissed so casually. The galaxy awaited humanity's response to the calorie challenge. And that response was ready. The conference room reeked of desperation and stale coffee when Hannah approached the sealed doors. Through the reinforced glass, she could see the research team slumped in their chairs like defeated generals after a lost war. Dr. Park sat with his head in his hands, his expensive suit wrinkled beyond recognition. Round the table, humanity's brightest minds stared at screens filled with failed calculations and crossed-out equations. The countdown timer on the main display showed 4 hours and 17 minutes until the calorie deadline. 4 hours until humanity would be judged intellectually inferior and banned from joining the galactic community forever. The weight of an entire species' future pressed down on the exhausted scientists like a crushing gravity well. Hannah took a deep breath and pressed her palm against the biometric scanner. The doors hissed open, and 24 pairs of bloodshot eyes turned toward her with mixtures of annoyance and curiosity. She carried a simple manila folder containing 43 pages of handwritten calculations. Humanity's salvation written in blue ink on recycled paper. "Miss Kim," Dr. Park said wearily, his voice barely above a whisper, "unless you're here to fix the coffee machine, I'm afraid we're not in the mood for interruptions. We've failed. Earth will be isolated forever, because we couldn't solve a simple mathematical equation." The irony of his words would have been funny under different circumstances. Hannah walked to the head of the table, her maintenance uniform a stark contrast to the designer clothing surrounding her. She placed the folder gently on the polished surface, her hands steady despite the magnitude of the moment. "I solved it," she said simply. The room erupted in bitter laughter. Dr. Lee Minho was the loudest, his Harvard arrogance still intact despite days of failure. "Come now, Miss Kim. We appreciate the gesture, but this isn't the time for—" His words died as Hannah opened the folder, revealing page after page of elegant mathematical proof. The alien symbols had been translated into familiar notation, each step building logically from the previous one. Variables that had seemed impossible now carried clear physical meanings, their relationships mapped with the precision of an engineering blueprint. Dr. Choi Yuna leaned forward, her Princeton training forcing her to examine the work despite her skepticism. Her eyes widened as she traced through the first few pages, her finger following calculations that made perfect sense where chaos had reigned before. This is impossible," she whispered, her voice trembling. "How could you? The equation describes consciousness as a quantum field manipulator," Hannah explained, her voice calm and professional. "Once you understand that fundamental principle, the mathematics become straightforward engineering calculations, the same processes that power our bioneural interfaces." Dr. Kang Suan grabbed several pages, his Stanford education compelling him to find flaws in work that came from such an unexpected source. But as he worked through the calculations, his face grew pale. Every step was flawless, every transformation justified by principles he recognized but had never applied in this context. The room fell silent except for the rustling of pages as the scientists examined Hannah's proof. Dr. Park stared at the solution with hollow eyes, unable to comprehend how the maintenance worker they had dismissed so casually had succeeded where they're combined. Genius had failed. "You're saying that consciousness directly affects quantum reality?" Dr. Choi asked, her voice barely audible. "That thought itself can manipulate matter and energy. We see it every day," Hannah replied patiently. "Every time you use the bioneural interfaces to control the computers. Your consciousness is manipulating quantum fields. The calorie equation simply describes the mathematical framework for this interaction. Dr. Lee Minho checked and rechecked the calculations, his hands shaking as the implications sank in. The elegant proof revealed not just the answer to the alien challenge, but a complete revolution in humanity's understanding of consciousness and reality. Years of theoretical physics had been turned upside down by a maintenance worker with a community college degree. The quantum consciousness coefficient, Dr. Park muttered, studying a particularly brilliant section where Hannah had derived the relationship between focused thought and field manipulation. You've quantified awareness itself as a measurable force. The countdown timer showed 2 hours and 43 minutes remaining. With trembling fingers, Dr. Park began entering Hannah's solution into the transmission system that would carry humanity's response to the waiting Kalari fleet. Each equation flowed perfectly into the alien communication protocols, the mathematical language bridging the gap between species. As the transmission began its journey across the solar system, the conference room fell into stunned silence. The greatest minds Earth had ever produced sat in their expensive chairs, their academic pride shattered by the practical wisdom of someone they had never bothered to truly see. Dr. Choi Yuna was the first to speak, her voice thick with emotion. We were so focused on theoretical frameworks that we missed what was happening right in front of us. The bioneural systems, Dr. Kang Siwan added quietly. We designed them, but we never truly understood them. Dr. Lee Minho remained silent, staring at the proof that had revealed his own intellectual blindness. The Harvard credentials on the wall behind him seemed to mock his inability to recognize genius. And yet war-work clothes, the transmission indicator, blinked green, confirming that humanity's response had been sent. Now they could only wait for the Kalari judgment, knowing that their salvation had come from the most unexpected source imaginable. The Kalari response came faster than anyone expected. While the research team sat in anxious silence, monitoring communication rays for any sign of alien judgment, the answer arrived with a burst of quantum-encrypted data that made the station's computers sing. With harmonious frequencies. Dr. Park's hands trembled as he decoded the message, his exhausted mind struggling to process what he was reading. The alien text flowed across the main display in graceful curves that seemed to dance with joy-wrath, and then cold mathematical precision. There, delighted, he whispered, his voice filled with disbelief. The Kalari expressed profound satisfaction that humanity's solution emerged not from intellectual arrogance but from what they call humble wisdom that sees truth in simplicity. The assembled scientists leaned forward, desperate to understand. Their salvation, Dr. Choi Yuna read aloud from the flowing alien script, her Princeton training finally useful for something beyond theoretical debates. They wish to meet the solver personally, intrigued by this human who bridges the gap between abstract theory and practical reality with such natural grace. All eyes turned to Hannah, who stood quietly by the viewport watching Earth rotate slowly. In the distance, she had changed from her maintenance uniform into the cleanest clothes she owned. Simple black pants and a white shirt that looked plain next to the expensive suits surrounding her. But something had changed in how the others looked at her. The dismissive glances were gone, replaced by a mixture of respect and shame. The Kalari fleet arrived 3 days later, emerging from hyperspace in a display of technology that left humanity's best scientists speechless. 5 crystalline ships materialized near the moon, their surfaces shifting between transparency and mirror-like reflection as they manipulated local space-time. Each vessel was the size of a city. Yet they moved with the grace of living creatures. Swimming through the cosmic ocean, the lead ship approached the research station with careful precision, its biomechanical docking systems interfacing seamlessly with human technology. The first contact protocols that had been debated for decades became irrelevant as the aliens demonstrated their mastery of consciousness-based communication. Hannah felt their presence before the airlock finished cycling, The Kalari consciousness touched her mind like warm sunlight, carrying concepts that transcended language barriers. She understood immediately that these beings had evolved beyond the need for spoken words. Communicating directly through quantum-linked thoughts, the delegation that emerged from the crystalline ship was unlike anything human imagination had conceived. The Kalari stood 7 feet tall, their forms seeming to shift between solid matter and pure energy. They moved with flowing grace that suggested bodies designed by consciousness itself rather than biological evolution. Their leader approached Hannah directly, ignoring the assembled PhDs who had expected to represent humanity in this historic moment. Kim Hannah of Earth, the being communicated, its thoughts flowing into her mind like music made of mathematics. We have journeyed across the galaxy seeking species that understand the true relationship between mind and matter. Your solution revealed wisdom that most civilizations take millennia to develop. Dr. Park stepped forward, his diplomatic training finally finding purpose. Honored visitors, I am Dr. Park Juon, director of this research facility. Surely you wish to meet with our most accomplished scientists. The Kalari leader turned toward him with what might have been amusement, though emotions translated poorly across species barriers. Your credentials are impressive by human standards, Dr. Park. But they mean nothing to us. We judge intelligence, not by accumulated knowledge, but by the ability to see connections that others miss. The alien delegation surrounded Hannah like living light, their presence filling the conference room with energy that made the quantum drives resonate in harmony. We have waited long for a species that values practical wisdom over empty intellect. Their leader continued, the galaxy is filled with races that master theoretical frameworks but remain blind to the elegant simplicity underlying all existence through their shared consciousness. Hannah felt the vast network of civilizations that spanned the galaxy, thousands of species connected by quantum communication, sharing knowledge and exploring mysteries that human science had never imagined. The Kalari showed her worlds where thought shaped matter directly, where consciousness and technology merged into something greater than either could achieve alone. You will speak for your people among the stars, the Kalari leader announced, the decision carrying the weight of cosmic law. Earth's representative to the Galactic Council will be one who understands that true intelligence comes from seeing what others cannot. The assembled scientists sat in stunned silence as their entire worldview crumbled and reformed. Dr. Lee Min-ho stared at his Harvard diploma hanging on the wall. Realizing how little it meant in the face of genuine wisdom, Dr. Choi Yuna and Dr. Kang Suan exchanged glances that carried years of humility compressed into a single moment of understanding. The Kalari prepared to depart, taking Hannah with them to begin her training as humanity's first galactic ambassador. Dr. Park approached her quietly. His expensive suit looked shabby next to the flowing energy of the alien delegation, his academic achievements diminished by the magnitude of what was happening. Miss Kim, he said, his voice thick with emotion, we owe you more than an apology. We forgot that true intelligence isn't measured by degrees or publications. It's about seeing what others cannot, understanding what others miss. Hannah smiled gently, the same quiet expression she had worn while fixing pipes and calibrating quantum drives. The answers were always there, Dr. Park. We just had to know where to look. The crystalline ships departed as gracefully as they had arrived, carrying humanity's unexpected ambassador toward a destiny among the stars. The research station fell silent as Earth's greatest minds contemplated a universe where wisdom mattered more than credentials, where the ability to see truth trumped the ability to memorize theories. The simple maintenance engineer who once crawled through dark tunnels now carried humanity's voice to civilizations beyond imagination. The galaxy had welcomed Earth not for its academic achievements, but for producing a mind that could recognize the elegant simplicity hidden within impossible complexity. The end.